This is an overview of our Medicaid 101. Today we'll be covering expanded care in the traditional IEP program. This is coming from a KDE perspective, and we will cover policy and the implementation for the program for the school districts. We will also cover how we complete the audits for this program. And if you have any questions, you can always email us regarding this presentation or any questions or concerns with the program. I'm Lindsay Kimbleton, and Stephanie O'Connor and I will be presenting today.
Thank you, Lindsay. We have three main objectives for today's presentation. We want you to understand the three programs that make up the school-based Medicaid program. We will spend about 99% of our time on the school-based health service program, which is our direct billing program. And then very quickly, we will go over the school-based administrative claiming program and the cost reporting cost settlement. Also today, we're going to spend a lot of our time understanding the billing requirements for the school-based health service program, which once again is our direct billing program. And we're also going to have a section that goes over the KDE monitoring process. This will allow the KDE monitoring process to be transparent for the school districts, so everyone knows what we are looking for when we come visit you.
So our current contractors and vendors for all three programs is for the direct billing, it's either KSBA, PCG, or info handler, and that's decided by each school district on who they want their billing agent to be. Also, our school-based administrative claiming program, which is also known as the SBAC or the Random Moment Time Study, is Public Consulting Group, PCG, and the cost reporting cost settlement is Fairbanks. That's a contract provided by Medicaid, and if you need to reach out to any of those people, you can contact Stephanie and I, and we can give you their contact information.
So just to go over the program background a little bit for everybody, the Medicaid school-based health service program started in 2008 for the state of Kentucky. This program was set up by the Center for Medicaid and Medicare Services, which is the local federal government. And it was set up to provide additional reimbursement for medically necessary services that the schools were already providing. Originally, this program was only set up to provide reimbursement for services that were listed in the child's IEP, but as we'll talk about in a few minutes, we now have had an expansion of the program in Kentucky.
Expanded access, aka free care. The federal agency, the Centers for Medicaid and Medicaid Services, reversed its free care policy in 2014 to allow states to expand their program. This will allow schools to receive reimbursement on medically necessary services that are provided outside of the IEP. Kentucky submitted their revised state plan amendment, also known as a SPA, on April 28, 2019. This allows schools for potential for Medicaid services that fall outside of the IEP.
So what does this mean for Kentucky? So on April 28, 2019, the Department for Medicaid Services once again submitted that state plan amendment to allow schools to bill for services outside the IEP. And then that was approved on November 4th of 2019 by CMS, which once again is the federal agency over this program. When they approved it on November 4th, 2019, it was actually retroactive to August 1st of 2019. But unfortunately, the schools were not able to bill yet because there was still a lot of program requirements that had to be made in order to implement this program. And then the link below will actually show you the state plan amendment that was approved by CMS for the state of Kentucky.
What is expanded access in Kentucky? Since our SPA was approved, this allows schools to bill for medically necessary services that fall outside of the IEP. Below is the link for guidance from CMS regarding free care, aka expanded access. Medicaid reimbursement for schools. This chart shows that that school-based health services, which is your fee for service, such as speech therapy services, receives the most reimbursement for the school districts. Second is the SBAC program. And last but not least is the cost settlement. Cost settlement sometimes is positive for school districts. Sometimes school districts end up paying back. But this is the 3 programs of Medicaid, and this is on a chart showing how much money they bring into the school districts and how they typically fall.
Also, don't worry, most schools will receive a positive cost settlement. Now we're going to go over the 3 school-based Medicaid programs. The first, once again, I keep saying it over and over, but it's a school-based health service program. It's also known as fee-for-service direct billing. This is a program that allows schools to get reimbursement for medically necessary services they provide, such as speech, OT, PT, nursing, mental health. The next program is the school-based administrative claiming program. The schools will receive reimbursement for this program on a quarterly basis for administrative activities they provide, such as outreach or coordination of care. And the third program is the cost reporting cost settlement. This is done in the late winter, early spring every year, and it basically allows the schools to report how much it actually costs them to provide the direct services. So first, we're going to talk about the Medicaid school-based health service program. You know, this is the program that we're going to spend all of our time today. And once again, it's the direct service program. So as we're going through this, we're going to talk about the requirements for the IEP program and also the requirements for the expanded access portion of the program. But this is anytime a school provides a medically necessary service, they then get a small amount of reimbursement for every time they provide that service to a Medicaid eligible child.
What parts of the program does your district participate in? This is the application that your district will fill out every school year and will submit to GMAP for approval from KDE, and then we send it on to Medicaid to reactivate your number. Your district can participate in the school-based health service program, which is the direct service program, and the SBAC program, but some schools choose to just participate in the SBAC program. That is dependent upon each school district, but your director of special ed should be able to let you know which part of the program your school district is currently participating in. So basic requirements for billing. A child must have Medicaid in order to be able to bill for any of these services. A child must have a current evaluation, and a child must have reimbursable services listed in the IEP, and or services must be medically necessary if you're participating in the expanded access program. The practitioners cannot be paid 100% federally. You can actually, if a practitioner is being paid 50%, you can still bill for them, but you cannot bill for 100% federally funded practitioner. And a child must have a parental consent in order to bill for Medicaid services, for any kind of services.
So expanded access versus IEP. We're going to try to differentiate these, like I said, throughout this, but this will give you a basic idea. For the expanded access program, in order to bill, you know, the service cannot be listed in the IEP. It has to be offered to all children at no cost to the student, and it has to be medically necessary. For the IEP portion of the program, the service has to be listed in the IEP. It has to be provided in accordance with the IEP, and it also must be medically necessary. So as we go through this presentation, we're going to try to differentiate the 2 parts of the program.
All right, parental consent. Parental consent is required for both IEP and expanded access services. KDE and DMS have made a dual parental consent that covers the IEP and expanded access services. Schools must use the standardized parental consent signed that KDE provided. It may not be altered in any way. Signed parental consents must be obtained one time as long as the student is continuously enrolled in your district. If the student leaves your district for any amount of time, the district must get a new signed parental consent. Just a reminder, districts may not share parental consents. Also, once the signed parental consent is received, the school must give out an annual notice every year that they will be billing Medicaid. Also, the dual consent does not void previous IEP parental consents. Unfortunately, sometimes parents will not give permission to bill. When this happens, the schools cannot bill Medicaid for that child. On the KDE school-based Medicaid website, there's a parental consent brochure and a dual parental consent in English and in Spanish.
Medical necessity has always been a hot topic for this program. So for the traditional IEP portion of the program, it's really simple. The service is listed in the IEP, it deems it medically necessary. So every service for the IEP portion of the program, such as speech, OT, PT, counseling, would be listed in the special ed and or related service section of the IEP. So it would have to be listed there, such as 2 times a week for 30 minutes in order for it to be medically necessary. For nursing, it actually is listed in the present level section of the health section of the IEP, but we'll go over that more in a few minutes. Now, for the expanded access portion of the program, below you'll see a definition that CMS gave us for medical necessity. But the way it was explained to us is that as long as a practitioner is working within their scope of practice in seeing or treating a child, then that would be deemed medically necessary. So if Johnny goes to see a nurse for a headache and the nurse treats him for that headache, that would deem medical necessity. But we will discuss that for the expanded access portion of the program, we do want to encourage that all practitioners use a very detailed note and always have good evaluations and just a lot of good backup documentation in case of future audits. So now the IEP, this is only going to be for the IEP portion of the program, but as we just said, the IEP determines, as long as it determines medical necessity. So the service has to be listed in the IEP. For this portion of the program, the IEP replaces things such as a doctor's order.
Medicaid billable units. 7.5 minutes to 15 minutes equals 1 billable unit for Medicaid. Exceptions are nursing services. Throughout the day, a nurse could, nursing services such as toileting, positioning, any of those types of things will add up throughout the day. So if you take Johnny to the restroom and it takes 5 minutes and an hour later, Johnny has to go back to the restroom and it's another 5 minutes, the two can combine and equal 1 Medicaid unit. Covered services. The following services are eligible for Medicaid reimbursement: nursing, audiology, speech, occupational therapy, physical therapy, behavioral health, incidental interpreters, assistive technology, but that is only for IEP students. Transportation is also only for IEP students. Orientation and mobility are for both. And telehealth is now billable through all school-based Medicaid programs. That is not something you have to have marked on your application. Due to the pandemic, we have expanded that, and that is the only way we're providing services currently to most of our students. So that is allowable.
Great. And just to let you guys know that incidental interpreters, it's actually available only in the IEP portion of the program. And the incidental interpreter can only be billed. It's actually an interpreter by the Kentucky Board of Deaf and Hard of Hearing, and it can only be billed for when a child is receiving another covered service listed in their IEP. For example, you can only bill for the interpreter interpreting for the speech, the OT, PT service. So you are not able to bill for the interpreters for all day services. Individual therapy. This is just for the IEP portion of the program. So you can bill for individual therapy or group therapy as long as the group is no larger than 6 students. So for the IEP portion of the program, since the IEP is the takes place of the doctor's orders, you have to specify whether you're going to be doing group or individual therapy on the IEP. If nothing is specified, the IEP automatically defaults to individual therapy. But we want practitioners to have the flexibility throughout the year to switch from individual to group at any time. So KDE recommends that you list small group or individual therapy in the supplemental aids and services or under the least restrictive environment sections of the IEP. Putting it in one of these sections of the IEP allows every practitioner listed in that IEP to have the flexibility to change from individual to group at any time throughout the school year. Here is a list of the service record requirements that's actually needed for the school-based health service program. The nice thing is most of these record requirements will be met by your electronic billing system. For example, every service log has to be signed by the practitioner, and we are very fortunate in Kentucky that this is all done electronically through an electronic signature. But when you get a little bit of free time, you're welcome to read over these and make sure your school is adhering to all of these policies and procedures. Okay, evaluations. So this is one of the most underbilled areas of the school-based health service program, but just to let you know that you can bill all parts of the evaluations. You can bill the observations, you can bill the testing, the administering of the evaluations, and the writing of the evaluations, as long as it's done during the normal school hours. Remember, if you have to write up your evaluation on a weekend, that's fine. You're just not able to bill for that. So you can bill for evaluations, but we want to make sure you always have your parental consent signed first. So for example, Johnny is a brand new student. He's entering kindergarten. The first thing we would do is you would want to go ahead and get the Medicaid parental consent signed. And then let's say the psychologist does a psychoeducational eval, and he also receives a speech and OT and a PT eval. Then the ARC meets and deems that he needs speech therapy, and it's listed in his IEP. So now, since a reimbursable service is listed in the IEP, you can now bill all of those evaluations done for Johnny. So let's reverse it. So let's say Johnny's 5 and he's starting kindergarten, and he receives the psychoeducational eval, he receives a speech and OT eval. The ARC meets and deems that he does not need an IEP. Those evaluations are actually still billable under the expanded access portion of the program. So that's just one way to differentiate, you know, do I bill my evaluations under the IEP portion, or do I bill it under the expanded access? If, you know, a service is listed in the IEP, you're going to bill those under the IEP portion of the program. So what's considered assistive technology? Assistive technology is only for any item or device that is over $100 that is not disposable, such as a wheelchair, a specialized lift, an iPad for a communication device. As you're thinking about whether or not you should use Medicaid funding to purchase assistive technology, there's a couple things you have to keep in mind. First, the item has to be listed in the IEP, and it should not be listed by the device brand. So if you're going to get an iPad for a communication device, we would just expect to see communication device listed in the IEP. Second, it has to be purchased with non-federal funds. So the school district would have to purchase it with non-federal funds, and then they can submit the claim to Medicaid for reimbursement, and they'll get approximately 70% reimbursement. Also, when you get reimbursement from Medicaid for a piece of assistive technology, please remember that it is property of the child. So let's say you put communication device in the IEP and you buy an iPad for Johnny. Johnny then takes the iPad home and doesn't return it. Unfortunately, it's his personal property since Medicaid reimbursed for this item. So then the school would have to then in turn, you know, purchase another iPad because it is listed in the child's IEP. 99.9% of the time, the parents and families will return this piece of equipment. It's not a big deal, but if you think it's ever going to be an issue, We just ask that maybe it's better to purchase it with school funding. Also, just like the other services in this program, assistive technology, anything that's purchased through the Medicaid school-based program, does not affect anything they receive from their traditional Medicaid. For example, years ago, there was a lady that called, and her traditional Medicaid for her son had purchased a specialized chair for her son, and she was transporting it every day back and forth to the school district. It turns out the school was actually able to buy that same specialized chair so the child could have one at home and one at school. Okay, transportation. Once again, this is just for the IEP portion of the program. You can get reimbursement for specialized transportation on a day that the child receives another billable service that is listed in their IEP. For example, Johnny receives speech on Monday, and he receives specialized transportation on Monday. Then you can get reimbursement for that specialized transportation on Monday, since that's the day he receives speech. Please know that's for specialized transportation. It's recommended that there are no general ed population children on the bus. If there are, you will have to prorate the mileage. Also, it has to be a specially adapted vehicle, which means there needs to be some sort of adaptation on that vehicle, such as a wheelchair lift or a harness. And last but not least, you can only claim the direct mileage from the child's residence to the school. You cannot claim the actual bus route. So if Sally lives 1 mile from school, but she goes 10 miles on the bus route, you can only claim that 1 mile each way. And last but not least, children that receive nursing services such as, bowel care, positioning every day, and it's listed in their IEP, then you could technically bill specialized transportation every day since they are receiving nursing services.
Should I bill this to expanded access? The questions below will ask, if you answer yes to all of them, then you should be billing expanded access. But you must answer yes to all the questions below. Should I bill this to the IEP portion? This is also just like the previous one. If you answer yes to all the questions, then you should be billing it to the IEP portion. This is just something Stephanie and I created to help you decide which one you should be billing it to. This is just kind of a quick way to do it. And if you have any further questions, please contact us at any time. We'll be more than happy to help you figure out where you should be billing that student. But this is just a little cheat sheet to kind of help you figure out if you can do it on your own.
Okay, so we spent most of our time talking about the direct billing program, all the requirements needed for billing the Medicaid program. Now we're going to spend just a tiny amount of time on the school-based administrative claiming program, which most of you will know it by the random moment time study. The school-based administrative claiming program is a program that offers quarterly reimbursement for the school districts for activities such as Medicaid outreach, coordinating of care, any administrative activity that helps provide the direct services. This is what that program is trying to capture. So these are just examples of the billable moments that are through the SBAC program. So completing your observation form. The one thing we want to make sure is that, as you all already know, there are 3,200 moments drawn every quarter. This is a mess. Stop. Now, let's talk a little bit about the school-based administrative claiming program. We're not going to go into a lot of detail because that's why we have a vendor public consulting group that provides trainings on this program, but we will give you a basic overview and touch on it. Okay, the school-based administrative claiming program is also known as the SBAC program, or you may also hear the word random moment time study. Those are all referring to the same program. The SBAC program provides the schools with quarterly reimbursement for the administrative activities that support the Medicaid direct services. The easiest way to describe this program is the direct services, the speech, the OT, the PT, the nursing are books on a bookshelf. And the time spent before and after the direct services, the bookends, that's what this program is trying to capture. Here's just an example of some billable services that the SBAC program tries to capture. You know, it talks about referral and coordination of services, Medicaid outreach, program planning are just a few examples. But one thing you want to remember, this program is done on a quarterly basis through a random moment time study methodology. So every quarter, 3,200 moments from each staff pool, the direct service staff pool list and the administrative staff pool list, are drawn for the state of Kentucky. So it really is random. Every quarter, you know, you have the same probability to get a random moment of time. So just make sure if you do get a moment in time that you answer it efficiently and professionally. And Lindsay is going to go over what to do if you get a random moment.
Okay, so when completing your observation form, you're going to receive an email and you will log in. And when they ask you, you just fill out the observation form. And when they ask you what you were doing, be specific. So say you were actually on lunch break and it asks you what you were doing during this time. Make sure you just put, I was on lunch break. Sometimes there will be a follow-up received asking for more information about what you were doing during that time, but just be honest and, you know, just make sure, even if you're going to the restroom, just say I was in the restroom. But I know that seems a little crazy to put that kind of information in, but that's what they're really looking for. So make sure when you fill out your observation form, you're very honest and give as much detail as possible. And then you'll be less likely to receive a follow-up form.
Thank you. Also, one new update with this program is everybody that receives a random moment has 3 school days to answer the moment. That has been a recent change. It went from 5 school days to 3. So please make sure your practitioners and staff at your school district are answering within 3 school days. Otherwise, the moment will be invalid. Also, remember that every school district has to have an 85% compliancy on answering their random moments within the 3 school day period. So make sure if somebody's out because they're sick that the coordinator is able to go in and tell public consulting group that they're sick so that moment doesn't count against you. So you need to maintain that 85% compliancy. Last, we're just going to touch very briefly on the cost reporting, cost settlement. In 2008, 2009, the Department of Medicaid Services transitioned to a cost settlement for this program. So what that means is that at late winter, early spring, the vendor Fairbanks will ask each school to submit costs for their program. So basically what happens is they do some calculations and determine if, you know, Medicaid paid you more than they were supposed to for the services that were provided or they paid you less. If Medicaid paid more, then you will owe the Department of Medicaid Services a check back, and it happens in reverse too. Most of the time, you do not receive enough money for your services, so the Department of Medicaid Services would then send you money. There's one thing to remember is that all 3 of these programs tie together and they really work together. So I'm going to try to tie these together. So Sally Jones is your SLP. She is providing direct services every time, you know, she sees a child that has Medicaid, she's billing that to Medicaid. So throughout the year, every time she provides a service, the school district gets a small amount of reimbursement. Then the coordinator then puts her on the direct service staff pool list in the random moment time study as an ASHA SLP. So then when it comes time the following year to do the cost reporting, cost settlement, your school district is able to claim Sally Jones cost. It then, you know, after some calculations, it says that your school only got $5,000 back for Sally Jones speech therapy, but actually it cost you $10,000. So Medicaid will then give you a check for $5,000. Now let's reverse it. Sally Jones is your SLP. Every time she provides a billable service, you get a small amount of money throughout the year. She receives $5,000 for those services. The coordinator forgets to put her on the direct service staff pool list in the random moment time study, or they put her in the admin staff pool list in the random moment time study. So the following year, it's time for the cost reporting cost settlement. Since she was not on the direct service staff pool list in the random moment time study, your school district cannot report Sally Jones cost, which means since you cannot claim her cost, you will then owe the Department of Medicaid Services $5,000 back. I hope that ties it all together for you and you get a better understanding of how all three programs work together. Now we're going to spend a few minutes trying to make our KDE monitoring process as transparent as possible and go a little bit over peer reviews. So every year the school district is required to do peer reviews for the school-based health service program. Usually the school districts do them in the spring for that current school year. You are required to do 10% of your claims, and you need to review a variety of disciplines that were billed. So you can't just review speech, you need to review speech, OT, PT, if that's everything you bill. And you have to have a review team that's comprised of different people that participate in the program, such as practitioners, such as a speech and OT, a PT practitioner, and maybe the coordinator of the program. And you need to keep some kind of documentation that you did these peer reviews and meeting minutes.
KDE monitoring. We will be monitoring 1/3 of the school districts annually, which is 25% will be on site. But this year, due to COVID-19, we will only be doing desk reviews, but hopefully once the vaccination is put out, we will hopefully be able to get back out into school districts, which is great when we get to come out and help you find anything you're missing. We want you to know that when we do these monitorings, you will always have the right to appeal the scores. If you get a 89.5% and you are just half a point off and you can find a missing IEP for one of your students, you can always submit that and we'll be happy to go back in and adjust your score. So there's always the opportunity. This is not us coming into your school district to try to find, problems. We're just there to try to make sure everybody's on track and following the Medicaid policies. So when we come out and do it, it's only for the benefit of your district and KDE. It's just protecting everyone. So we will still be doing monitoring this school year. It will just be at desk. We will be doing desk audits this year. And some people have already been alerted that we are going to be monitoring their districts, but by January, you should know if your school district's going to be receiving a monitoring this year.
Thank you, Lindsay. Here's an example of our monitoring form we use for our KDE monitorings. Please know that we're going to try to break this form down for you in just a minute and let you know exactly what we look for in each piece of criteria, okay?
Number 1, is there an evaluation/assessment documenting the need for an IEP in the student's record?
So what we're looking for in this is we're going to look for the evaluation or assessment that occurred prior to the service being rendered. So if the claim date was December 1st of 2017, we expect to see the evaluation prior to December 1st of 2017. Also, if it's a speech OT PT claim, we would expect to see if it's a speech claim, the speech evaluation that occurred prior. If it's an OT claim, the OT evaluation that occurred prior to the date of service. Also, if the claim we chose is an evaluation claim, then we would expect to see the evaluation that resulted from that claim. So if it says December 1 of 2017, you completed an observation for an evaluation, then shortly after December 1 of 2017, we would expect to see that evaluation. Also, if it's a claim for an evaluation, we would also expect to see the IEP that resulted from that evaluation. Remember, for the IEP program, you can only bill an evaluation as long as one billable service is listed in the IEP after the evaluations are done. We hope that cleared up some issues for you for evaluations.
Number 2, is the IEP current with the date of service?
So we're just looking, we're going to go back to that December 1st, 2017 example. We would just expect to see the IEP that covers December 1st, 2017. Once again, if December 1st, 2017 was an evaluation, then we would expect to see an IEP that resulted from that evaluation. So it would occur shortly after it. And Lindsay, feel free to interject. I know this can all be a little bit confusing, so.
Okay. Number 3, does the IEP identify the type of service billed?
So we're looking, every service for the IEP portion of the program should be listed in the special ed and or related service section of the IEP. So we are literally looking for that it says if it's a speech claim, that speech therapy is in that special ed and or related service section of the IEP. Same goes if it's PT, then we're looking to see that PT is listed in the IEP. We're also,
Number 4, has the parent or guardian signed a parental consent / release of information?
So for this, we're just looking for the parental consent that was signed prior to the service being rendered. So if this service was that speech claim for December 1 of 2017, then we would expect to see the parental consent signed prior, and this one was signed 9/1 of 2010, so that would be correct.
Does the log list the service date?
So on here is an example of a service log, and we're just looking for the specific date of the service that is being audited.
Number 6, does the log reflect the type of therapy service provided? Does this match to the service outlined in the IEP?
So we're not just, now this question is not only asking for the date, but if it's a speech claim, we want to make sure that it's actually a speech therapy, speech treatment notes. As you can see, this is speech treatment notes. And does it match the service outlined in the IEP? So for that part of the question, we're looking for a couple of things. If it's group therapy, then we would expect to see small group or individual therapy in the IEP. It can be anywhere in the IEP, but of course our best practice recommendation is that it's listed in the least restrictive environment and or supplemental aids and services. We're also looking that it says that the time correlates with the IEP. So if it said twice a week for 30 minutes in your IEP, then we would expect to see on this service log that it's twice a week for 30 minutes.
Number 7, if the session is group, does the log list the group size?
And we are just looking for the group size in your service log, and this one does say group of 3, so that is perfect.
Number 8, does the log identify where the service was provided?
This one is a little misleading, but actually all we're looking for is that we have the school district at the top of the service log. Luckily, every billing agent that we have in the state of Kentucky does that automatically for our schools.
Number 9, does the documentation reflect the duration of service? And does this correspond to the units billed?
So we are just looking that the 30 minutes that was listed in the IEP correlates with what was billed here. The only time we would find an issue is if the IEP said 30 minutes and it was billed an hour and no makeup session was noted. Please remember that if you're billing anything outside of what the IEP says, if you're billing more because you did make up a session, then you just need to put in your notes, makeup session for this date.
Number 10, is the log signed by the person who delivered the service?
All of our billing systems now do electronic service logs. So this, it says at the bottom, signature on file, so this counts.
Number 11, does the service documentation reflect the progress towards the IEP goals?
Here we're looking for, what notes are being said in your treatment notes, and also just any kind of reflection that you are still working towards your IEP goals. This is not something currently we focus a lot on at KDE Monitoring, but it will be something we'll probably focus on in the future.
Number 12, is the staff credentialed for the service provided, and were they approved on the practitioner list submitted to KDE?
So they're at the beginning of every school year, in order to start the program and activate your provider number, you have to fill out an application. So Sally Jones was the SLP providing the service that we're auditing. Then we expect to see Sally Jones on an application or added through an amendment prior to the service being rendered.
Number 13, student with attendance on the date of service.
When auditing these claims, we usually ask for the annual attendance log for that student just to make sure they weren't absent on the date the service was billed.
Number 14, is the staff listed in an appropriate staff pool list?
Here, we're just looking under our school-based administrative claiming vendor, and we're looking for that practitioner to be listed in the correct category and the direct service staff pool list.
Okay, so these are some available resources. This is our school-based Medicaid service, our technical assistance guide, and our current trainings, our parental consent brochure, and get to know your contact for your billing agent. And to utilize KDE resources, please click on this link above. You can send all your questions to the school-based Medicaid email box. And if you're unable to reach us there, you can always give us a call. Please just always call. Our contact information is on our website.
Here's a list of all the billing agents' contacts. That's really important. Every practitioner should know which billing agent they use. So if you use Info Handler, you can contact Sarah or Megan, KSBA. You can contact Kim or Tony, depending on which district you're at. And Public Consulting Group is Megan Rodriguez.
And here's our contact information. Once again, this has got our phone number and our email address. This also has Lucy Centers for the Department of Medicaid Services. You can always reach out to her if you have another question. And we also have Fairbank's contact information, the cost settlement group, if you have any questions regarding your cost settlement.
We hope everyone enjoyed this presentation. And if you have any questions or need anything else, feel free to contact Lindsay, and I hope everybody has a great day.